Thank you. Mr. Panetta.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to all the witnesses, and of course, Mr. Deutsch, it's always good to see you. As I told you prior to your leaving, you are one of those members that we miss. So thank you for being here today in this capacity especially. I think we can all agree that all students deserve a safe place to learn, free from hate, speech, and discrimination. And I think we understand that free speech and protests, though, are part of university life. However, when protests turn violent, demonstrators break the law, or debates devolve into hate speech, actions need to be taken. What I think is an issue, though, is that when it comes to policies to govern protests and speech on campuses, there are just different standards and difficult standards to meet. When it comes to the First Amendment, there are different policies for public universities which are bound by the First Amendment and private universities which are not. Two, also we know that to receive federal funds, colleges must adhere to the Civil Rights Act, but that bar to prove discrimination in court is very high. And another issue is that universities have enforced their rules unevenly, as many of you have discussed today. We've seen college administrators curtail speech in certain areas to accommodate students, even for some microaggressions, yet the same administrators appear unmoved by the distress of Jewish students. And sure, all colleges have limits on time, place, and manner of protest so students can attend class, but they are implemented differently. We know that there are examples of universities getting this right by addressing anti-Semitic actions while shutting down protests that endanger the campus community. I saw that in my district at a local university, and it was even written about by a student who wanted to get to class and appreciated the university's actions to clear the protest. Now, unfortunately, though, some of these positive examples are overshadowed by the missteps of others. When university administrators have taken action against demonstrations, they've been accused for going too far as well. Moreover, heavy-handed policing can galvanize protesters and prove counterproductive. Despite that, though, we should ensure that the positive examples are followed and that we have mechanisms in place to support Jewish students and address and prevent anti-Semitic incidents on campus. Look, we can agree that colleges should protect the rights of students to raise their hands in class in which they can make claims about the Jewish state or even express misguided support for a terrorist organization, because the airing of bad ideas is an important part, not just of college life, but of American life. But letting protesters yell intifada and intimidating Jewish students trying to get to class is not consistent with free speech. Nor is there a free speech right to occupy parts of a university. And yes, we support freedom of assembly as part of the First Amendment, but that does not mean that protesters have a right to assemble anywhere if it means that it prevents other people from using public spaces. And of course, damaging property and defacing statutes is a crime whether you are on campus or in a public park. So if there are lawbreakers that are practicing civil disobedience, they need to do it in a way, as Martin Luther King Jr. said, do it openly, do it lovingly, but doing with the willingness to accept the penalty. Now look, all of you have expressed disappointment in your testimony about the responses from colleges on this issue. We can condemn anti-Semitic speech from students. However, it is ultimately the university leaders to protect students on campus. Now, Mr. Deutsch, you talked with my colleagues' questions about what Congress can do. What should universities be doing to address some of these issues that I talked about so that we can prepare for the coming school year to ensure that basically, yes, we protect free speech, but we also crack down on hate speech?
Well, first of all, it's good to see you, Congressman, and thank you for your very thoughtful comments. It starts with acknowledging that universities have the primary responsibility here, that as they're looking ahead to the fall, they're taking action like we've seen at other universities, where, number one, they're speaking out with moral clarity about what is and isn't acceptable, about, as Professor Davidai points out, there can be no tolerance for the support of terrorism on campus. This has been a really interesting conversation. In real life on college campuses, there are students who are actively speaking out in support of the terrorists who committed the 10/7 atrocity. They should be speaking with more clarity. They should be making sure that the code of student conduct on their campus has been updated to reflect the moment. It should be clear what the repercussions are if it's violated. They should make every student acknowledge what those repercussions are. We've heard this earlier, so that it's clear what will happen, and then they need to actually follow through if the code of student conduct is violated. Those are all important steps that they should be putting in place right now before a single student comes back to campus to set a tone for what is and isn't acceptable, to create the kind of university community that every university president claims that they want.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.